Well, I have a confession. I can keep it real here, right? All right, my confession. I once was a philanthropy jerk. I didn't want to be one. It didn't start out that way, but I became a jerk nonetheless. And I wish I could tell you that I didn't see it coming, that somehow I didn't really know it was going to happen, but being a philanthropy jerk was practically written on the wall of the first large foundation I was worked at. Now, I thought at the time I could be better because I knew better, right? I started out as far away from the realm of big philanthropy as you can imagine. I'm the daughter of Mexican immigrants. I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, right? Yeah, that's me. Far away from philanthropy. I started working when I was 8 years old, helping my mom clean houses, and I would take a bucket of dirty water and I would follow her around as she mopped from room to room. And when I was in high school, one of her cleaning clients was a classmate, a family of a classmate. Oh, I was so embarrassed. I mean, it was so embarrassing to be cleaning up after a peer, a classmate, as she studied or did something that I was probably supposed to be doing, but instead I was cleaning her toilet and trying the best I could not to be envious or be thinking about all the nice shiny things she had, because my mother's first rule of being in other people's houses: never give them a reason to question you. That embarrassment was really about shame, right? Even though my mother taught us to be proud and to be really proud of being hardworking, the fact was we were different. I was different. And that difference made a difference in how we were treated, how I was seen, how I was loved, and how I was unloved by people in power around me. So, what did my mother say? She said, you know what? You have a way out. Education. Education is the way that if you get it, they can never take it from you. Okay. Well, she went to the thrift store and she would buy books for $1 a bag. Now, you can imagine what kind of books you can get when they're all lumped into a bag for $1. I mean, they're things like dictionaries with pages ripped out of them. It's moldy copies of Emily Dickinson and Shakespeare. And I read all of it. I didn't know. And what it led to was that in the 4th grade, when I was moved out of the remedial classes that they lumped all the immigrants into, I was moved out of those classes because I scored a perfect score on a standardized test. One of only a couple of students in the whole state to score this score. Well, they tested me 3 times to make sure it was legit, so. Yeah. But I persisted because I knew, get the education, get the good job, then they'll see you, then they'll listen to you, then they'll love you. And then when philanthropy came calling, I was ready, right? I had the lived experience of the communities they were targeting. I had the fancy education. And to be honest, I kicked ass at all my jobs before then, so, I was ready. And also philanthropy was telling me that, what we needed was data-driven solutions, right? Data is my love language, so I was ready. So big philanthropy brought me into the big ivory tower, sat me down in a sea of cubicles, and handed me a badge and a nice salary and said, the way you're going to be successful, what we're going to measure success for, is how big a jerk you can be. They didn't say that exactly, but in fact, they did want to solve for problems, big problems, poverty, the ecology, all the things, right? But big philanthropy, like a lot of strategy consultants and mega donors and a lot of folks who are, in this field, believe that solving the world's miseries came down to a simple equation. Smart people in an ivory tower solving for problems and creating strategies, plus grantee minions, I mean partners, equals benevolent world domination. I mean progress. So, yeah, that theory alone, though, doesn't make you a philanthropy jerk, so don't worry. But you're like, well, I don't want to be a philanthropy jerk. What do I do? How do I not become a philanthropy jerk? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to tell you. There's lots of ways, but there's 3 main ways that I'm going to share with you. Number 1, don't be a business jerk. Number 2, don't be an idea jerk. And number 3, fund like a feminist. So number 1, don't be a business jerk. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you an example. When I was in that big ivory tower of philanthropy, one of my first tasks was to find a grantee partner, find a nonprofit that fit a certain profile, dangle some money in front of them, and make sure that they will do exactly the activities we needed them to do in order to fulfill a internally designed strategy. Now, of course, my very first meeting with a nonprofit, it was really clear that we had missed a few things because no one had spoken to them beforehand, and no one had spoken to the grassroots. Of course, when I brought this up, I was told, well, maybe you're too close to the community that we're trying to help to really do your job right. And really what you needed to do is you need to go back out there and be a boss. Tell that nonprofit that it's our way or nothing. You see, philanthropy's obsession with corporate culture brings with it the values of that culture, which include ownership, domination, and an incessant desire to expand ill-begotten wealth, privilege, and access. Number 2, stop being an idea jerk. I once heard that in business, the difference between a good idea and a bad idea is scale. And that makes sense, but that doesn't work in philanthropy. And I'll give you an illustration of what I mean. So let's just say, for example, there's a local organization that has developed an amazing, powerful idea to get from point A to point B, and it's called a wheel. And, philanthropy loves wheel. It's a tech solution, right? It's loves wheel. There's great data on wheel. Wheel is great. But the problem is the organization that created wheel is a tiny organization, and they're run by a woman of color. And even though they created Wheel, there's not a single Ivy Leaguer on staff. So, they go back. So philanthropy goes back and says, let's take a year to develop a strategy on how we develop a new wheel. And then we invite the same organizations we normally invite, and we end up giving a grant to the largest organization, same one we always give it to create a new wheel. So that organization creates the wheel, a new wheel. It's not exactly the same. It's kind of okay. But nobody wants this wheel. Why? Mainly, it's okay, but that's not why. It's because no other philanthropy will fund something they didn't fund to begin with. So that wheel doesn't scale. And philanthropy's conclusion? You know what? Wheels are a bad idea. So that brings me to my last point. Fund like a feminist. Now, I admitted to my philanthropy jerk moment. I'm not proud of it. But one of the things I learned along the way is it doesn't matter what your experience is, what you know, what you've learned, what you've accomplished. At the end of the day, your job is to give people money and get out of the way. The best ideas are the ideas that are created by those closest to the ground, right? And I'll give you an example. Let's take that wheel again. Let's say that local organization is funded by a local feminist fund. And that feminist fund is connected to other local feminist funds all over the world. And that connection is through a global network that's also feminist, that has the values of not of corporate culture, not of idea jerk culture, but of feminist culture that's rooted in abundance, solidarity, shared ideas, and the belief that you can center both new ideas and seasoned ones. It's a network that's rooted in the idea of not searching for unicorns, but the idea that the big, hairy idea is that there are thousands of big, hairy ideas, and that they're created by local people, mainly women of the global majority, who are tailoring those ideas to their local community because it makes sense for them. And they're sharing those ideas because they want the world to change. They're not interested in these other ideas. They're not interested. They want the world to change. And what they really need to scale is the connection, that global connection that connects them to each other, that connects them to the resources they need to make life better today, as well as funding their movement for change over time. Well, of course, not only does this network exist, I run one of them, the Women's Funding Network. And as many of you know, the Women's Funding Network is the largest alliance of women's funds, gender justice funders, and anyone interested in moving money for, to make us equal, to get to a more equal society for all of us. Together, with my network and other feminist fund networks, we cover every single region in the world. How's that for scale? Right? You see, the shared ownership of ideas, this kind of social ownership of ideas for progress, that's not a new idea. It's an idea that's time has come. Will you join me? You don't have to have $1 billion or a Harvard degree. You just have to believe that the principles that got us into this, the most unequal society the world has ever known, are not the same principles that are going to get us out. You have to believe in the power of giving money collectively and trusting the people on the ground, the people closest to the problem, who are the wisest and the most capable of solving that problem. No jerks. That's a picture of my mom and me. Will you join us? All right. Thank you.